Welcome to this 24th lecture in ME303 heat transfer. So today we'll be talking about the importance of turbulence in convection calculations. We've been talking about boundary layers. We've talked about convection. Then we've been talking about the temperature, how the temperature develops inside a laminar boundary layer for flat plates as an application of the solution of the energy equation. So we said that the initial discussion was for laminar situation, where the boundary layer was, the flow was layered or laminar inside the boundary layer. But most of the applications we deal with, in fact, in the industrial applications we work with in mechanical engineering, most of the flows are turbulent. So we must understand how the convection calculations are performed, and how the heat transfer coefficient and finally the rate of heat transfer is affected when the flow becomes turbulent from a laminar situation. Okay, so before that, let us first talk about what turbulence means. What is turbulence? We have a decent understanding of what turbulence is. So this is mostly a recap of what we have learned in fluid mechanics 101. So turbulence, when we say turbulence, what comes to our mind is mixing, okay, enhanced mixing. So when the flow is turbulent, there's a lot of mixing that happens in the flow. We see a lot of swirls or vortices, and because of this mixing, there is an enhanced diffusion of momentum and energy. So what happens if we look at the flow which is laminar, we see that the flow happens in layers, one over the other. But when the flow transitions to turbulence, as Reynolds number increases, or for a situation where the Reynolds number is high, then you see that the flow is not as layered as this one. And at some places, if we take a snapshot of the flow situation, then we'll see at some places the flow may be going in different directions. Okay, so what this means is that there is no steadiness in the flow. So if we see this picture again at a later time, we'll see that all these directions will be quite random and quite different from what they are at this snapshot. So what happens is that initially when the flow was laminar, it was going in a nice streamline, and then we see that as you see in rivers, that there's a lot of mixing, there's a lot of the flow is happening in all different directions. So what that means is that at an instance you will see that at a different the flow in this layer. So if you're talking about, let's say, flow in a boundary layer, so initially the flow was quite nice, mostly in the x direction, but slight components in the y direction because of the ensuring that the continuity is satisfied. But then we see that there is some transition that happens, and then the boundary layer becomes turbulent. So this is your boundary layer as a function of x, the boundary layer thickness. And then here we will call this zone as turbulent. So in this turbulent region above the plate, you will see some sort of vortices. These vortices like this. So at any instance, you will see that the flow may be in this direction, and some places it will be this direction, some places it will be this direction, so on. So there will be a lot of, rather than having just an x component, it will have random y components as well. So if a molecule is having a y component, that means that it will move up. So it will jump from layer to layer. So that jumping from one layer to the other, because of these this random y components and x components that have developed, these jumping from one layer to the other causes the mixing, like mixing of the fluid. And if we're talking about, let's say, a bottom layer molecule which was going slower than a molecule at the top layer, so when this bottom layer molecule gets a velocity in the y direction as well, it jumps up and it takes with it the momentum deficit, because it has a slower velocity. So when a slow moving car goes into a fast moving car lane, then it slows the whole lane. So it's similar to that. So this slower molecule will slow down the top layer, and vice versa. So if a faster molecule jumps down and then it brings a larger momentum to the lower layer, so all this jumping up and down causes a lot of mixing. And then this is the reason that when we look at the velocity profile, the x velocity profile in a turbulent region, then we see that it's sorry, we see that it is mostly flat. So you'll see that your velocities will be mostly flat, and then towards the very bottom region you will see a strong variation in the velocity. Of course, I mean, it won't be as flat as this, otherwise we cannot call it a boundary layer region. Yes, I'm exaggerating things here, but there is this region very close to the plate where you have very strong gradients in the velocity. And this region, if you remember, is called the viscous sublayer region. Because all this jumping of the molecules between layers, because of the randomness in the flow, the enhanced mixing, the y components that have developed because of turbulence, it causes a flatness in the x velocity profile, and it's only a very small region near the plate that you have very strong gradients. So this is what we see because of mixing of the molecules from one layer to the other, causing a mixing of momentum and hence a flatness in the velocity profile. Now, similar ideas also work for energy, because if a molecule has, let's say, from a lower layer, which has a temperature which is, let's say we're talking about a situation where the, as earlier, the, let's see if you can draw it here. Well, we can't, so let's use another plate. So we have this Ts, which is the surface temperature, and then let's say this is our boundary layer delta as a function of x, thermal, and this is our T infinity. So this is typically what we used to see earlier. Let us assume that this flow was laminar, but when a molecule which is closer to the plate, so let's say somewhere here, it has higher temperature, it has more temperature. When it jumps up, because of this mixing of, because of this turbulence, the molecules have got some y components which are causing the molecules to jump from layer to layer. So this what this does is it makes the temperature profile also very flat in most of the region, because the molecules are jumping between layers, so they are carrying energy, or the temperature deficit or temperature increased temperature. So this results in a boundary layer for temperature which looks, mostly it looks flat, and then towards the very bottom you see a strong gradient in temperature, and this is all for a turbulent region. Okay, so this region is laminar. Then you have something called transition. So transition region is where the flow transitions from being laminar to turbulent, and then this region is so the region further right to the transition region is further is all turbulent. Okay. All right. So what we effectively see is that because of turbulence, because of this enhanced mixing between the different layers, you see a lot of diffusion of momentum and energy. Because ultimately, mixing is nothing but diffusion. So this results in so this results in very strong gradients of velocity and temperature close to the plate. Okay. So this is somehow this was some sort of a discussion of the mechanism of enhanced diffusion of momentum and energy because of the flow being turbulent in this turbulent flow region. Okay. And remember that this flow is turbulent. This flow is I mean, what happens in the turbulent region is regime is that these tiny fluctuations that you see that appear because of either the flow, the flow that is flowing. I mean, you have to the flow has to happen due to some uh, reason. So let's say you have a car moving in static air ambient. So we can consider this as relative to the car, the air is flowing across it. So this air that's flowing across it may have some tiny fluctuations because of some effects, and these tiny fluctuations in the flow that is in the incoming flow, or because of these tiny perturbations, at the bottom of the surface, you will have these fluctuations in the velocities. So what happens in the laminar region is that these tiny fluctuations, they die down. Okay? So it's dissipative. So these fluctuations die down. These tiny fluctuations in the incoming flow, or the tiny fluctuations appearing because of the wall effects, they die down, and you don't see those fluctuations in the main flow, which looks quite layered and laminar. But in the turbulent region, these tiny fluctuations they grow. Okay, so that is the nature of the flow in turbulent region. So these tiny fluctuations grow, and they grow to size. It's like some sort of instability that is just growing, and these tiny fluctuations grow, and you see velocities in all directions. Even though the incoming flow was mostly in the x direction, you didn't see any y or z direction flow, but these tiny fluctuations, they grew, and then they resulted in significant flow velocities in x and in y and z directions as well. Okay, so this is the inherent nature of turbulence. I won't talk too much about it because this is something that we already have learned in fluid mechanics. But one must remember that it is turbulence is inherently unstable, and the unstable flow, and it is these instabilities that are growing in turbulence causing a lot of mixing of the flow in general, and that overall mixing causes a lot of mixing of momentum and energy as well, which is mathematically modeled as enhanced diffusion. Okay, so we'll talk more about it towards the further when we talk further in this lecture. We'll come back to this. Okay. So remember that the aim has been to calculate the rate of heat flow out of this plate in this flat plate discussion that we've been having. So in this plate that we have here, to calculate the rate of heat flow because of convection, remember it is this gradient of temperature on the wall that matters. So we have been interested in this quantity del T by del Y at Y equal to 0. And that is exactly what we are interested in here. So what we see is because of the fluctuations in the velocity. So let's do a quick discussion about the velocities first, and then we'll talk about temperature. We'll take a parallel as we've been doing in the past. So in this, sorry. So you have this laminar region, and then you have the turbulent region. So when we used to draw the velocity boundary velocity profiles, we used to have this kind of a parabolic velocity profile in the laminar region, and then in the turbulent region we had this flat velocity profile. So mostly it is flat, and then towards the very bottom you have this very strong gradient in the viscous sublayer region. So you have u infinity here, and then you have u equal to 0 on the plate surface. Okay, so in velocity boundary layers, we were interested in the wall shear stress. So we used to write the wall shear stress for the laminar region as mu times del u by del y at y equal to 0. So in the turbulent region, when we used to write the wall shear stress, if you remember, we used to write del u bar by del y at y equal to 0, because the flow is not steady in the turbulent region. You take different snapshots, you'll see the velocities at different points in different directions. So what we do is this thing that I've drawn here, this profile is not for u, it is for u bar. So this is the u bar. U bar means time average. So u bar is defined as integral 0 to some time u times dt, because this u inherently is a function of time, it is fluctuating. So what you do is you take some sort of an averaging device, and then you measure lots of measurements, and you take an average, and that is how you get the x u bar, that is the average velocity in the x direction. So we call this the average wall shear stress, and this is written as mu times del u bar by del y. So remember that in turbulent region, since the flow is not steady, we tend to talk of the velocity, the average, the gradients of the average velocity. So similarly, in heat transfer, and remember in fluid mechanics, what we also saw was that this wall shear stress in the turbulent region was typically more than what we used to see in the laminar, most of the laminar region, and that was because these gradients, if I look at the gradients here near the wall, this was very steep as compared to what we saw here, because of, again, because of that mixing. So because of the mixing, we have a very flat profile in most of the region, and then since the velocity has to go from 0 to u infinity, so that increase, that variation happens in a very small vertical distance. Okay, that results in a very strong del u by del y, and that ultimately results in a very strong wall shear stress. Similarly, in heat transfer, we have the Q, which is proportional to your del T by del Y at Y equal to 0. And then you have, call this laminar, and this turbulent is proportional to del T bar by del Y at Y equal to 0. Again, since your molecules are fluctuating, so their temperatures, as we notice, is also fluctuating if we do a measurement. So we tend to take an average of the temperature at a given point, and then we calculate the average temperature profile. So this temperature profile that I had drawn in the previous slide was for T bar. Sorry. Okay, so T bar is defined in a similar sense. So T bar here defined. So integral over some, well, since I've used capital T for temperature, so I have to use some T tilde. Okay, so I'll call it T tilde. Okay, so it's an average temperature profile, and then what we see is that again the gradients are very strong in this region as compared to what we see here in the laminar region. Yeah, I haven't drawn it that way, but I can exaggerate this a bit further. So the gradients here near the wall are much stronger than what you see here. Okay. So what that means is that since you have a very strong gradient of temperature, so the rate of heat transfer is much more. Or as we say, the coefficient H, the coefficient of convection, the heat transfer coefficient H is much higher in the turbulent region as compared to the laminar region. So let us draw, or let us plot the heat transfer coefficient H as a function of the distance in the boundary layer. So this is your x, that is the length in the boundary layer. So you have a laminar region, and then you have some transition zone, and then you have a turbulent region. So in the laminar region, your H, as you know that H is extremely high at the beginning of the plate, because the boundary layer is extremely thin. So the gradients of temperature are extremely high near the plate. So it's extremely high, and then it remember, it also decreases as you go further from left to right. This is the kind of variation you see here. But then I mean, we won't talk about what happens inside the transition zone, because it's very difficult to understand that region. But at the beginning of the turbulent zone, since you have this enhanced mixing, so what you see is that the heat transfer coefficient at the beginning of the turbulent zone is much higher than what you noticed at the end of the laminar zone. And again, then since you now are in the turbulent zone, now the boundary layer is still growing. So as I showed here, the boundary layer in this region is still growing. So since the boundary layer is growing, so again the temperature gets more region, more distance to go from 0 to T, Ts to T infinity. So what that means is that the H will again start reducing with distance, but not as steeply as it used to go earlier, because this time you have this lot of mixing happening. So it's a very weak function of x, but it still goes down. Well, I haven't shown that clearly, but what I'll do is I'll make this appear more steep. And then of course, there is some increase that has to happen in this transition zone. Again, it's very common that we don't show the transition zone at all. So what we say is that the heat transfer coefficient goes down, and then it suddenly increases to a large value. That's also something that is done when your transition zone is shown to be almost of zero size. It's up to you, but what we really want to show is that the when the flow becomes turbulent from laminar, then you see a sudden increase in the heat transfer coefficient. So this is your H as a function of x, that is the distance from left to right in the plate. Okay, so this this figure, this dependence of h on x is extremely important. And as engineers, what we tend to do is, for specified geometries, we try to find this h. We try to develop some sort of an empirical correlation for this h is a function of x for laminar and turbulent regions. Okay, and remember that in most cases we have to find the total heat loss because of convection. So that total heat loss requires us to get some sort of an estimate of the average heat transfer coefficient h bar, which is nothing but, for a flat plate, this is integral 0 to let's say we're talking about a situation where the flow becomes turbulent suddenly. So for some distance, which we call x critical, so this distance is x critical, on the left of which the flow is laminar. So for this region, we use h laminar as a function of x. Then we have dx. Remember, this is 1 by L. And then you have from x critical to this length L, and in that region the flow is turbulent. Again, h is a function of x, and then you have dx. Okay, so these two functions are mostly obtained from empirical correlations, but for a flat plate, h laminar as a function of x can be obtained from the analytical solution, as we got as I showed you in the previous lecture. So we can use that solution and substitute here, and this when we add these two and divide by well, this division by L is overall. So that gives us the average value of h, this is h bar. And from this you can also calculate the average Nusselt number, which is h bar L by K. Okay. So there's one more thing I want to discuss. So in turbulent flows, well, as I said that there's a lot of mixing that happens in turbulence. In fact, if you remember in fluid mechanics, you used to have mixing. There is a term that you have on the right hand side, which is nu times del 2u by del y2. In turbulence, we time average the equations. So instead of dealing with u, we deal with an average value of u. So we sort of time average the equations, and the effect of turbulence has to now be considered in the equations. So remember, the left hand side we still have the same equation. So you have u del u by del x plus v del u by del y. Okay, so all these are now time averaged values. Okay. So on the right hand side, you have this nu, which is kinematic viscosity, which is nothing but your dynamic viscosity mu upon rho. So this mu that you have is molecular viscosity, because this is some sort of mixing that happens on a molecular level. But now, since you have this bulk motion of the molecules, so what typically we do in turbulence is that instead of writing this mu, we add another term to it. Sorry. So we add, well, let's add it to nu, that is okay. So we add another term to it, which we'll call, let's say, xi. So this nu is containing your molecular viscosity, whereas this xi now contains your turbulent viscosity. Although this is not a viscosity, but this is some sort of a model. So to model that enhanced mixing of momentum, we add turbulent viscosity, or we also call it sometimes turbulent diffusion, because this is doing nothing but diffusing the momentum, which is exactly what your Nu does as well, but on a smaller scale. So what we see is that the diffusion of momentum because of turbulence in general is much higher in magnitude as compared to what molecular viscosity does. So the effect of molecular viscosity only is, remember this xi is a function of x and y. So very close to the plate, your momentum molecular effects are much prominent as compared to turbulent effects. But far away from the plate, the molecular effects are almost negligible as compared to the turbulent diffusion effects. That is the reason you see a very flat profile in most of the region, but towards the very close region in the plate, you see that that you still have a gradient. So that means that the molecular viscosity is still active. So it's still dominating in that region. Okay, so this is how we typically model this system. Similarly, if you look at the temperature equation, so we had so earlier we had the coefficient alpha, that was the thermal diffusivity, but now we add again another coefficient of diffusion, which is xi, which again brings in the effect of turbulent diffusion. Okay, so this was the diffusion of temperature because of the molecular effects, and this one xi as a function of x and y takes care of the turbulent diffusion because of the actual mixing or the jumping of the molecules from layer to layer. Okay. Now remember, we also brought in the Prandtl number, which was taken as the ratio of your molecular viscosity to the thermal diffusivity alpha. Okay, so we said that the major difference, the only difference in fact between these two equations is this coefficient that we have on the right hand side. So if this coefficient is close to 1, and the ratio of the coefficients is close to 1, that is Prandtl number is close to 1, then the two layers, the momentum boundary layer and the temperature boundary layer, they grow almost identically. But if the ratio is very far away from 1, then they grow differently, as we discussed in the past lecture. But in this case, since we're talking about now, the diffusion coefficient has been enhanced, and in most of the region in the boundary layer, it is this xi that dominates. So what we see is that if we have a nu plus xi on the numerator, and you have alpha plus xi in the denominator, and remember this xi is the same because the mechanism of the diffusion is the same whether it's momentum or energy, because the diffusion is happening because of the molecule jumping. So that jumping of the molecules is causing a mixing of momentum as well as energy. So this coefficient xi is the same in both numerator and denominator. And since nu and alpha are much smaller than xi in most of the region of the boundary layer, so this coefficient, this ratio is almost close to 1 in most of the boundary layer region, except very close to the boundary. So what that means is that your boundary layers for momentum and energy and temperature in the turbulent region, they grow identically. Okay. So we'll say that delta is approximately the same as delta T in turbulent region. Okay. And remember, in delta T was dependent on Prandtl number earlier. But now, in this case, the dependence on Prandtl number is not there, because we have some sort of modified Prandtl number here, which is close to 1. Okay, this term modified Prandtl number is not very common. So the dependence of the thermal boundary layer thickness on the Prandtl number is not there in the turbulent region. Okay, so this is a very important idea, and you must understand this idea, because in turbulence, what we see is that the diffusion coefficient is primarily because of the turbulent diffusivity rather than the molecular diffusivity of momentum or energy. Okay, so very important idea. We must have a very good feel of it. All right. So one last idea I want to discuss here is regarding something called turbulators. Okay. So you saw that the the average heat transfer coefficient H bar was well, we already wrote that, so let's refer to that. So this relation, the average heat transfer coefficient is a sum of the contribution because of the laminar region and the turbulent region. So let us say that our aim was to maximize the heat transfer, the loss of heat from a plate. So to do that, and let us say you had a choice as to where this X critical would be. So typically for a your X critical is close to 5 into 10 to the power 5. Sorry, the Reynolds number, we call it Re X critical, is 5 into 10 to the 5. So this Re X critical is, so we write it Re X comma C. So this is U infinity X critical upon nu. Okay. So the flow transitions to turbulence at a Reynolds number of 5 into 10 to the power 5. Now this of course is a typical value, but what you can do is if you have a flat plate which has let's say for this flat plate, let's draw it here. So let's say you had a flat plate which was transitioning to turbulence here. So your X critical was here. But what you do is even upstream from there, you give some sort of jaggedness to the plate. So what happens is that this X critical will shift back, and your flow will tend to get turbulent here. Okay. So what typically is done is we take a wire, and we so if this was our flat plate, so what we do is we take a wire and paste it on the surface, and that wire is called a turbulator. So that reduces your value of X critical. Now remember, the X on the left of X critical, the H value is small, and the right of X critical, the H value is large. So if I was to increase the average H value, I would tend to want to shift my X critical as backwards as possible. Okay, so as much as I can, I would try to shift it so that my turbulent region dominates and my average heat transfer coefficient increases. Okay, so this is a common idea that is done to enhance the rate of heat transfer from a surface by pasting or by adding these trip wires, which are also called turbulators. Okay, so this is an idea that we must understand because this is carried out very commonly in the industry. In fact, you can in fact shift this X critical all the way to X equal to 0. So the boundary layer starts with being turbulent. Okay, so these are things that have been done experimentally, and we have seen that we can allow the boundary layer to exist completely in the turbulent region. Of course, very close to the beginning of the plate, things may be different, but in most of the region on the plate, you will have a turbulent convection happening, or the turbulent boundary layer existing. So the H value, the H bar will mostly have contribution from this turbulent region. Okay, so this is an idea of a turbulator that is commonly used. So I thought of mentioning that. So this brings us to an end of our discussion on turbulence and its effect on convection. So remember, as an overall summary, turbulence is really good if you want to enhance the rate of heat transfer due to convection from a surface. So I will discuss an example of doing calculations for rate of heat transfer in convection situations. What typically is done as engineers, how do we do calculations given some sort of correlations to us? But we will include that discussion as a part of a tutorial to save some time here. So this sort of brings us to an end of the convection discussion, the mechanism of convection. Remember, we said that in convection we will have two kinds of discussion. One is on the mechanism, where we talk about the equations, the ideas that emerge from those equations by solving them, by doing some non-dimensionalization. And then once we have a very nice um, basics of convection, then we will see a lot of correlation. So we'll see different geometries now. So we were looking at flat plate geometry, which is very simple, but real geometries are much more different than a flat plate. So we'll see how the Nusselt number or the heat transfer coefficient depends on your Reynolds number and Prandtl number for different geometries, and then we'll try to use these expressions for the Nusselt number for doing energy calculations or the calculations on the rate of heat transfer. Okay, so these calculations will then naturally evolve to applications of convection. One of the major applications is heat exchangers, where you exchange heat between two fluids by using these pipes that are flowing with one fluid outside the pipe and one inside the pipe. So we will discuss about heat exchangers as well in some decent amount of detail before moving on to our third mode of heat transfer, which is radiation. So I'll stop here. And again, in case you have any questions, please feel free to write them in this YouTube video. Thank you very much.